obviously you can't like everybody. I think that there's people that you connect with and there's people that you don't, and it's pretty much as simple as that.
I am James, and this is Golf Relived. Was it worth it? That is the question hanging over the entire career of Nick Faldo. 6 major championships, 97 weeks as the best golfer on the planet. A Hall of Fame place that nobody can argue with. And yet, when people remember the man, the first word that comes up is not greatness. It is hatred. He was called the most hated man on tour. He was called a machine, a robot, a cold and arrogant loner who treated his peers like furniture. And the wild thing is, he knew it. He just did not care. Here in 2026, the golf world has quietly started to revise its verdict on Faldo. We live in an age of launch monitors, data analysts, and athletes who treat their mental state like a mechanical system. That sounds exactly like what Faldo was doing in 1985. The sport caught up to him, but being right did not make him liked. It might be what made him so deeply hated. This is the story of how Nicholas Alexander Faldo became isolated, resented, and still managed to win more than almost anyone. A story about what happens when a man decides greatness matters more than friendship, more than warmth, and more than what his peers think of him. To understand Faldo, you have to understand the world he walked into. Professional golf in the 1980s was not just a sport. It was a traveling fraternity. Players like Seve Ballesteros, Greg Norman, and Ben Crenshaw fought hard between the ropes and shared drinks at the bar afterward. The locker room had a code. You acknowledged good shots. You spoke to your playing partners. You were a competitor, but you were also a human being. There was a romantic quality to it. These men, for all their fierce ambition, genuinely loved being around each other. Faldo walked into that world and treated it with contempt. Not dramatic contempt, not loud, aggressive contempt. The quiet kind. The kind that hurts more. He simply opted out. No eye contact in the locker room. No compliments on the course. No small talk. No shared drinks. No basic acknowledgement that the man standing next to him was a person worth speaking to. He was not explosive. He was something far worse. Indifferent. In a culture built on brotherhood, that indifference is a deep insult. That behavioral choice did not come from nowhere. It was built, deliberately, from a moment of humiliation. Faldo was born in Welwyn Garden City, England in 1957, the only child of George and Joyce Faldo. His parents enrolled him in museums, opera, piano, and ballet. He discovered golf at age 14, watching Jack Nicklaus play the 1971 Masters on his family's new color television. 3 years later, he won the 1975 English Amateur and the British Youths Championship. He turned professional in 1976. His father, sharp and resourceful, sent him to play in France and Belgium to bypass a Professional Golfers Association rule that required new pros to return their first 6 months of prize money. He thrived immediately. He finished 8th on the European Tour Order of Merit in 1977. That same year, at just 20 years old, he became the then youngest Ryder Cup player in history. If you were watching those early years, you might have thought you were seeing a future beloved champion, a British prodigy carrying the hopes of a nation. The warmth of that story did not last long. By 1983, Faldo was at the top of the European Tour Order of Merit. He should have been riding high. But something was breaking down in the major championships, where it matters most. His game crumbled under pressure. The 1983 Open Championship exposed him. The 1984 Masters was worse. The British tabloid press did what tabloid press does. They gave him a name, Nick Faldo, a mocking label designed to follow him, to embarrass him publicly, to define him by his failures. It worked in the short term. It humiliated him deeply. But humiliation, for a man like Faldo, does not produce grief. It produces transformation. He decided that if human emotion was causing him to fail under pressure, then human emotion had to go. Not managed, not channeled, gone. Eliminated like a mechanical flaw in a system that needed to run perfectly. He went to work with coach David Ledbetter in the mid-1980s and rebuilt his swing from scratch. Not adjusted, not tweaked, demolished and rebuilt. His contemporaries thought it was excessive. The golf world watched him drop off the competitive radar for years, earning virtually nothing while he rebuilt. Ledbetter estimated that during the brutal summer heat in Florida, Faldo hit between 500 and 800 practice balls every single day. Not occasionally, every day. Commentator Peter Allis noted that something was lost in the reconstruction. The flair that had made Faldo exciting was gone. The remodel eradicated his mistakes, but it also eradicated the spark. Now, If you are enjoying this story and want to show some love, go ahead and give this video some hype. It takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps this channel keep telling stories like this one. Back to Faldo. Because what happened next is where things get truly uncomfortable. The rebuild did not just change how he swung a golf club, it changed who he was as a person. Ledbetter said it plainly years later. Faldo was not the most popular man with his fellow players. He did not go out to win friends or influence people. He seldom called people by name. He was very difficult to get close to. That is an observation from the man who spent more time with him than almost anyone. In the locker room, Faldo became a ghost. He would walk past men he had known for a decade, global superstars, without making eye contact or offering a nod. Walking 18 holes with him was a psychological trial for opponents. He refused to participate in the standard tour etiquette of complimenting good shots. If his playing partner hit a beautiful approach, Faldo would stand there in unblinking silence, staring blankly down the fairway. He turned the golf course into a silent office. His opponents were not competitors to him. They were background hazards. Sandy Lyle remarked in 2002 that if Faldo walked past him, he would not even stop to say hello. A man who had known Faldo for decades, describing what it felt like to be treated as invisible. The coldness did not stay on the course. It spread through every corner of his life. He married Melanie Rockall in 1979, but that marriage ended in 1984. Rockall later said that Faldo demanded what she called unflagging emotional support. He wanted a wife to be a self-sacrificing Faldo soldier. His second marriage to Gil Bennett in 1986 was shaped almost entirely by his career. The births of their children were medically induced, so they would not clash with Faldo's tournament schedule. Read that again. Children's arrivals engineered around golf events. That tells you everything about the hierarchy of priorities inside that man's mind. Then came July 1987, the Open Championship at Muirfield. This is the round that made the world realize exactly what they were dealing with. Faldo had won the Peugeot Spanish Open in May, his first European Tour victory since 1984. The rebuild was working. He entered the final round at Muirfield, 1 stroke behind American Paul Azinger. Conditions were cool and misty. And Faldo did something no one in the gallery, no one in the press tent, and probably no one in the locker room expected. He played 18 holes of risk-free, methodical, emotionless golf and made par on every single hole. Not one birdie, not one bogey. 18 straight pars, one after another after another. A display of such mechanical precision that it made the crowd feel cold just watching it. Azinger had held a 3-shot lead with 9 holes to play. He bogeyed 4 of his last 9 holes, including the 17th and 18th. Faldo holed a 5-foot putt on the final hole for his 18th consecutive par, and he highlighted a 35-yard bunker shot on the 8th as the moment that held the round together. He won by 1 shot. The golf world was stunned, not impressed, stunned, bored and unsettled in equal measure. Azinger openly detested what he felt was Faldo's superiority complex. He took public swipes for years, unable to process the fact that Faldo genuinely did not care what he thought. That indifference made Azinger angrier. The hatred deepened. Faldo defended his Masters title in April 1990, beating Raymond Floyd in a sudden death playoff. He did it inside an impenetrable mental bubble. No pleasantries, no eye contact, no acknowledgement that another human being was playing alongside him. Players felt it as active contempt. His prickliness was not limited to his playing partners. The media felt it too. After the final round of the 1990 US Open at Medina, where he tied for 3rd, he refused to go to the press tent entirely. A journalist suggested to him that he had hit a putt too hard on the final green. Faldo snapped back. He said he hit it perfect, hit it a foot past the hole, and demanded to know how anyone could say he hit it too hard. He was right, technically, but the delivery told you everything. His relationship with the press reached a peak of mutual hostility in 1991. He genuinely believed the media was trying to destroy his career. After his 1992 Open victory at Muirfield, he took the microphone and sang "My Way" to the crowd. He mockingly thanked the press from the heart of his bottom. The crowd laughed. The press did not. The relationship never really recovered. He once took a particularly pointed revenge on a golf journalist who had won a charity raffle to caddy for him. He hid a heavy brick in the golf bag and made the journalist carry it for 9 holes. Petty, calculated, entirely in character. The tensions with the great names of his era were not just professional disagreements. They were ideological battles. Seve Ballesteros was everything Faldo was not. Passion, magic, recovery shots that defied logic. Seve viewed Faldo's robotic perfection as an insult to the art of the game. Ryder Cup tensions between them were highly charged. Seve despised Faldo's cold demeanor. Faldo viewed Seve's emotional outbursts as structural weakness. The 1991 Ryder Cup produced one of the more uncomfortable moments in team golf history. Faldo was paired with debutant David Guilford. They lost 7-6, a heavy defeat. Faldo was heavily criticized for barely speaking to his partner throughout. Guilford, years later, recalled a separate tournament incident where Faldo returned a scorecard to him with 10 or 12 mistakes on it. Guilford's assessment of the man was brief and devastating. He said Faldo was not a wonderful man. Then there is Paul Azinger, again, because Azinger and Faldo were never done with each other. At the 1993 Ryder Cup, the two men faced each other in singles. The Americans had already won overall. Neither man eased off. Azinger came from behind and holed a 10-foot putt on the final hole to steal a half point. Later, reflecting on the highlights of that match, Azinger looked straight at the camera and said this. He said he had cancer, and Faldo still could not beat him. Simple, direct, devastating. It worked precisely because Faldo gave him no warmth to blunt it. And then came April 1996, the Sunday at Augusta National that divided the entire sport. Greg Norman walked onto the first tee with a 6-shot lead over Faldo. The gallery, the media, and every locker room in golf wanted the great white shark to win. Norman was flashy, risk-taking, beloved. He had come so close so many times. This felt like his moment. Faldo stood on the tee looking like an executioner in dark knitwear. What unfolded over the next 4 hours was one of the most uncomfortable victories in major championship history. Norman's swing began to fall apart under the pressure. He was visibly sweating, frantically pacing, looking to the crowd as if the gallery could somehow steady his hands. Faldo moved through the chaos like a cold scientist running a laboratory experiment. When Norman found the water at the par 3 12th hole, Faldo did not smile, did not react. He pulled out his yardage book, checked his parameters, and executed. He shot a flawless 67. Norman shot 78. Faldo won by 5 strokes. The silence across Augusta National was deafening. The crowd did not cheer for Faldo's brilliance. They mourned Norman's collapse. Faldo hugged Norman and whispered something to him about not letting the media get him down. But to his peers, the message of that Sunday was clear. The beloved emotional artist, no matter how popular, could not beat the cold, unfeeling engineer. That win came at a price that had been accumulating for years. His decade-long partnership with David Ledbetter ended. The man who had spent thousands of hours with him in the Florida heat, who helped him become the best golfer in the world, deserved a conversation. He got a cold, blunt letter. Faldo did not call, did not look him in the eye. Ledbetter was stung deeply. He later reflected on how difficult Faldo had always been to get close to. In 2002, Faldo severed ties with his longtime agent, John Simpson. Another relationship built over years ended abruptly. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. In 1999, Ryder Cup captain Mark James did not select Faldo for the team. That was painful enough, but James went further. He binned a good luck note that Faldo had written to the squad, threw it away without sharing it. Colin Montgomery reflected on that moment and said it probably made Faldo realize he should have been nicer on the way up. 3 marriages ended, relationships built over careers discarded, a good luck note thrown in a bin. The isolation that Faldo had chosen as a weapon had become a cage. In 2008, that cage became a catastrophe. Faldo was named European Ryder Cup captain. It should have been a crowning moment. Instead, it exposed everything his approach had cost him. A captain needs to connect, inspire, and build chemistry. These are skills Faldo had actively buried for 30 years. At Valhalla, he struggled from the beginning. He alienated his players. He made awkward jokes that landed in silence. He struggled with basic communication during press conferences. He bypassed Darren Clarke for his wildcard selections, choosing Ian Poulter and Paul Casey instead, a decision that baffled the team. And on Sunday, he made the choice to bottom-load his best players in the singles order. It was a strategic error that proved fatal. The Americans needed just 5.5 points to win the cup. They secured that total before Europe's best players were even relevant in the day's order. The final score was 16.5 to 11.5 in America's favor. It was the largest margin of American victory since 1981. The man who had spent his career building a wall between himself and other human beings discovered, in the most public way possible, that you cannot lead people from behind a wall. And yet, here in 2026, something has shifted. Broadcasting changed Nick Faldo in ways victory never did. In 2005, ABC paired him with Azinger in the commentary booth. Azinger played it straight, while Faldo revealed something the world had never seen from him: dry wit, genuine humor. The warmth was not abundant, but it was there. In 2006, CBS signed him as their lead golf analyst on a 4-year deal worth an estimated $8 million. Working in television introduced him to what colleagues described as a family atmosphere. He dined with people. He exercised alongside them. The decades of accumulated tension from his playing career slowly began to diffuse. Even his relationship with Tiger Woods softened. At the 2006 Open at Hoylake, Faldo joked with Woods on the practice range, diffused on-air tension, and earned the champion's respect. Tiger Woods does not give respect easily. In a world where elite athletes now use data and treat social interaction as a distraction, Faldo looks less like a villain and more like a pioneer. He was doing in 1985 what sports science would spend 20 years proving was correct. He just did it without the language, without the framework, and without caring whether anyone understood it. So we come back to where we started. Was it worth it? 6 major championships? Say yes. 97 weeks at world number 1? Say yes. A permanent place in the Hall of Fame? Says yes. The blueprint he laid down, now copied by modern champions who treat peer interaction as an unnecessary distraction, says yes. But the letter that ended Ledbetter's heart says no. The good luck note thrown in a bin says no. The children whose births were scheduled around golf tournaments say no. The Ryder Cup captaincy that collapsed because a man had forgotten how to speak to people says no. Nick Faldo built an immortal machine. He built it at human cost. And the question that lingers in 2026 is the same one that lingered in 1987, in 1996, in 2008. If he had shared a beer, offered a kind word, acknowledged even once that the men around him were worth his time, would the 6 majors still be there? Or was that coldness, that isolation, that almost inhuman focus, the exact price required to build something that lasts forever? The decades suggest the hatred was never a byproduct. For Nick Faldo, it was the fuel.